Today, Duck Soup is cited by film historians as a defining work of anarchic comedy and a sharp, enduring piece of political satire. But in 1933, the film was a commercial and critical failure. Audiences were confused by the 80-minute barrage of rapid-fire absurdity, and the contemporary press cycle produced a wave of dismissive reviews. The financial returns were poor enough that Paramount Pictures, the studio that had backed the brothers through 4 previous hits, allowed their contract to expire and effectively ended the partnership. The failure also fractured the group itself. Tired of playing the straight romantic lead to silent theaters, the youngest brother, Zeppo, walked away from the screen act entirely. To understand how a movie goes from a career-threatening misfire to a cultural triumph, we have to look closely at a desperate film studio, a changing geopolitical landscape, and a comedy style pushed to the edge of cinematic chaos. The Marx Brothers spent years surviving the grueling vaudeville circuits. On those live stages, they perfected an incredibly precise sense of physical timing and a deep-seated irreverence for any form of authority. By 1933, the United States was deeply entrenched in the economic collapse of the Great Depression. Paramount was facing the threat of bankruptcy, and executives were desperate for a massive, reliable box office draw. They paired the brothers with director Leo McCarey, who immediately pushed the group away from the rigid, dialogue-heavy structure of their previous Broadway play adaptations. McCarey built an intentionally thin plot. Groucho plays the dictator of a fictional, bankrupt nation called Fredonia, dealing with inept spies from neighboring Sylvania, a setup designed as a simple clothesline to hang relentless, chaotic gags. Stripping away traditional narrative rules allowed the group to execute an 80-minute assault on stuffy political pomposity, blind international diplomacy, and the very concept of nationalism. Visually, the film contains some of the highest-level physical comedy ever filmed. The standout is the mirror sequence, where Groucho encounters what he thinks is his own reflection. In reality, he is looking at Harpo, who is dressed exactly like him. Harpo flawlessly mimics every single movement Groucho makes, maintaining the illusion with perfect synchronicity. This routine is deeply rooted in centuries-old theatrical traditions, but the brothers executed it with a level of precision that makes it a masterclass in physical performance. The precision required for this sequence indicates the brothers were at the height of their technical powers. If a performance this polished failed to find an audience, the disconnect likely stemmed from the world outside the theater doors. In 1933, the public was seeking refuge. Domestically, millions of Americans were trapped in the severe economic misery of the Great Depression. Simultaneously, a terrifying new political era was taking hold overseas. Adolf Hitler had just assumed power in Germany. With the trauma of the First World War still fresh, audiences were looking for comforting escapism when they walked into a movie theater. Instead, Duck Soup gave them an extended, chaotic battle sequence. The brothers switch their uniforms, fire on their own troops, and treat global warfare like a neighborhood game. For a fearful public, the film's pitch-black cynicism and anti-war sentiment weren't funny. They were uncomfortably radical and deeply unsettling. After their Paramount contract was dissolved, the remaining 3 brothers migrated to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer to survive in the industry. There, producer Irving Thalberg took control. To ensure commercial safety, Thalberg reined in the brothers' wild energy, adding romantic subplots and musical interludes to appeal to a broader audience. Because of these new constraints, Duck Soup was cemented as a unique historical artifact. It stands as the final, undiluted distillation of the Marx Brothers' raw theatrical anarchy. Decades later, during the cultural upheavals of the 1960s, a new generation of film scholars and college audiences began revisiting the film. Set against the backdrop of the Vietnam War, this audience felt a growing distrust of political institutions and nationalistic fervor. The exact cynicism that had repelled viewers in 1933 suddenly felt modern and prophetic. The film's critique of blind diplomacy and war resonated with the new era. What 1933 audiences dismissed as erratic nonsense was eventually recognized as a sophisticated piece of social commentary. The world had simply needed 3 decades to catch up to the punchline. This was brought to you by Stalls or Circle. Thank you for listening.